The following video is about SCHLAGE locks. Other locks will be similar or identical, depending on who's ripping off who. And I did a video about the SCHLAGE lock mechanism that's in a doorknob that also has a little tab on the other side, and how you can replace the entire lock by pulling off the knob, but only if you turn the key in the lock from the neutral position, we're going to call it, to the locked or unlocked position in order to have it move a little football-shaped cam that's on the back of it out of the way so you can push in on a tab and just pull off the knob. And you can ask people at the fire department about if they have the tool that just rips the knob off so that you can just pay for having a lock repaired instead of them dramatically breaking down a door with an axe like they used to. Now, the other thing here is I'm going to be now doing the deadbolt. And like in the previous one, because they're held in with really long, I'm going to call them lag screws that go from the inside of the building out, there are a set of holes. I'll show you here real quickly, turning correctly, and hoping it doesn't fall out like it did last time. This one and this one, where the screw goes in from the inside outward. And it's presumed that that's a good security thing, and it is. But a person can drill from the other side if they know the exact location, if they build a jig or build a special drill or just use a normal drill. They can drill in until they hit the screw and then use another screw, another drill bit that's sleeved, that's a little smaller, to gouge into and grip the screw, and then use the drill bit like a screwdriver to back the screw out until it comes out the other side. And then maybe expend 2 bits on it or whatever. And they can just take out the lock and get in. Or they can, in the case of the doorknob, rip it off. It's called drilling a lock in some cases. Now, on the mechanism for throwing a deadbolt, it's literally a deadbolt. It is a lot more simplified, and all it needs is something that rotates, basically a screwdriver, to throw it or unthrow it. And on the inside, there'll be a knob that you turn that's usually got a pretty good grip on it. So this metal piece here, this flat piece, is actually the entire part that does that rotating part. Now, this is about the external lock mechanism that's entirely on the outside. The whole thing is on the outside. And if it was bashed loose, defeating those 2 screws, by the way, they're made to where it's really hard to do that, or drilled out or whatever, then it would just be very easy to just turn it with a screwdriver or just gripping it with a set of needle nose pliers to force the lock to open. So we're not talking about defending against that. We're going to be talking about taking the mechanism apart, how little there is in here that's actually doing the work, because I'm going to demonstrate something here. As I have the key in here, if I want to be able to remove it, I have to turn the key a certain amount of distance for it to be able to come out, and that's the non-retained position. If it's locking or unlocking the door, it's retained in the mechanism. And I'm going to show it that when we rotate it, it literally just rotates that thing all the way around. It can rotate several times. It can be used to run a gear system if you want to. I haven't seen anybody do this except me. To run a vault door where you have several deadbolts around the door going up into the top and the bottom of the frame and in the sides. Just so you know. And you can do it as a geared down thing and all sorts of cool stuff. And the SCHLAGE ones are nice because a lot of these deadbolt ones don't have a stop point. Okay, now, let's take it apart. First of all, when we get the mechanism out, this really just wants to fall apart. We look at the opening here in the back where this little metal plate is. It's essentially like a flathead. And if we tilt it, we have to tilt it this way or this way. Well, if we tilt it, we get a look at it. We tilt it this way, it comes right out. In order to put it back in, which you need to know how to do because it's going to fall on the ground, you push it in like that with that little tab they have. It's another football-shaped one. Put that in there and put it in carefully. It should just go in and it'll be loose as hell. Pull that out, save it, God help me. Now I'm going to pull out the entire mechanism. The whole thing just kind of falls apart almost. It's a real, I hate them putting them in. Now again, we have our mechanism and I'm going to rotate it and it just keeps rotating. It's free spinning. And it's a mechanism that does that and only that. And only at one position will you be able to remove the key, because that's the position where all of the pins will then go into a position where it can't rotate, because the pins will then fall into a set of holes. That's how it works. Or interference fit with each other, depending on the design. Now, I'm going to take out the key because we don't need it right now. And I'm going to get out a Phillips head because there's one screw to hold it in. Now, I want you to notice that it's inset lower than the other hole over here that's next to it. Some of these have more pins. If you have a really hard to pick lock, supposedly, it'll have more pins, which means it'll use this hole for the screw instead of this one. And they might charge more for it because that is actual, extra machining and stuff. So we do this and unscrew that screw. And this is my second take because I dropped the screw on the ground and panicked. I have an anxiety about locks because I learned to lockpick. I also ended up getting locked out of my home, actually several times, because even though I can easily win a competition for lock picking and picking a lock with, bobby pins and shit, I can't get past my lock a lot of the times. In fact, if I can defeat a lock, I don't trust it anymore, which means I end up buying lots of locks. And at one time, I did a lot of rekeying of a building with lots and lots of doors. I have some knowledge in this area, but just because you can pick a lock doesn't mean you're a locksmith. And working for somebody who is also not a locksmith doesn't make me a locksmith. Anyway, when we remove that, we have this oddly keyway-shaped thing here for this round core to go in. We pull that out. It's shaped like that. And we have just a hole with that part there that keeps it from moving. And again, all that screw did is just keep it from coming out. So now we have our mechanism. It's locked up here. We're going to take out our key. And at this point, it's just a tool to actuate. And again, once we get the lock, so you get it in there, we can rotate it continually any direction we want. And potentially, again, this could be a geared down mechanism for running several deadbolts. Just saying. This is how I want to key these things. Now, if I'm doing a vault door, I have to imitate this or integrate this into, yes, I've done one for a customer. He wanted a highly secure door. We don't know what happened to, no, I'm just kidding. He just wanted a really secure door because he didn't want to actually pay for a vault. All it involved was a standard fire steel door and putting in just a standard deadbolt and having just this visible on the outside. So I made a mechanism. You notice how little clearance there is before you start getting to the pins? It's a bad idea. However, insetting it a bit by grinding off the shoulders and making it go in from here to here, that extra little bit made it to where I could use a steel plate. So I made a steel plate to where only the key mechanically could fit into that space, and you didn't even see most of the lock, and it was totally hidden behind it. And all it did was turn just the deadbolts, and it ran, I think, 3-to-1 ratio, and ran, because we did 3 of them, I did one in the body, well, I did one at the top 75% and the bottom 25% of the door. It wasn't where the knob, where the lock was. And then the other one, the other one was to hold the top. And it actually ran 2 bars. And they were just steel bars I hooked up with the gear mechanism. But anyway, here we go. That's the entire mechanism there. Very fascinating. So how do you rekey these? That's the cool part. You don't. You just get another core and put it in. That's it. You just buy another door knob and lock set cheaper. Please do not try to customize these things. There's enough randomization with these things, it's fine. But obviously the mechanism can take 2 different lengths. Get the one with more of the pins in it. Now this drops in from the inside like that. And we put in our screw to hold it in. Make sure you put it in the right spot or the lock will jimmy itself loose and screw up. And it might work for a while, but you'll screw it up. You can put in more pins in that lock that looks really cheap that has the princess logo or whatever they used. And this one has the actual mechanism here that holds it. These things you might think are some sort of binding thing. They don't bind anything. The thing rotates freely. There might be one that doesn't do that. This is literally all that's preventing someone from bashing the lock in. And it's a piece of zinc or aluminum. It could be either. It's usually pot metal. And it goes in there. And the real thing that holds this into the body of your house door, front door, is the screws going into this part of the body of it. And this being the hardcore piece of material it's held in with. Which means you can reduce the lock profile on your house for a door to, it's the lock mechanism itself, that actual part in there, is bigger than this. This is how thin you can make it. That's the minimum thickness. Can't really reduce it more than that. If you get really, really surface mountish looking doors, door locks, they usually have fewer pins in them. It might be decorative, it might be nice that it's flush mount, but all you have to do is just put this part in the body of the door, and you can use that metal flange as a basis for getting a washer for it. I've actually done that once. But again, all I did was take the whole thing out and just use the cores to run a gear mechanism and put it behind steel plate. Anyway, once we get this thing out, then we have to, again, none of this is held to itself. It's not a problem. You can wrap tape around to where it doesn't literally do that. Oh my God. I hate the lock. Okay, so anyway, we learn from our mistakes. We hold on to it tighter. Now we look here and we see our half moon shape. We take our flat bar that's like a screwdriver, because it's not really much different than that. We put it against there, and that little flange will pop in, and it goes up and then comes to a stop. And then we have the joy and wonder of trying to hold all this in place while we stick it back in our door. God help us all. Okay, now, why did I do this video? Many of the videos on the SCHLAGE lock gloss over a detail or not. Like, I did a detail on the video how complicated it is. It really is more complicated for the lock inside of your doorknob. That sounded wrong. And specifically in the SCHLAGE. This one is so ridiculously oversimplified as far as locks because, again, you put the key in and it just lets you rotate the thing continually, and it doesn't give a shit which direction it's rotated. And it just has a neutral position that hopefully is enforced so you can get the key back out. And under these conditions, it might not let me get the key back out. Yeah, it's not. So don't be surprised if you're futzing with it like this and you can't get the key back out. You have to have it in the mechanism or held tightly or something like that. Or just hold it this way, and then suddenly you can get it to the neutral position here. If I can just work it a little bit. Come on, don't make me look bad on camera. I already look really terrible. There we go, and you can get it out. And that is your easy, happy, joy method for dealing with a SCHLAGE lock. Yes, I'm overemphasizing how difficult it is. But when you're fumbling around trying to fix one because you're frustrated with something at the time, you'll drop that little metal bar, the key. Like, why won't it let me take the key out? You'll get angry. You'll bang on it. You'll pull really hard, and every bit of this will go into 18 different directions somehow. And if you're trying to rekey it by doing that thing, it gets fiddly too. So here's the advice. Don't be me. Here's the advice. Doing everything on the ground. Chill the hell out when you work on a lock. Number one. Number two, all of these are drillable and defeatable, and the deadbolts are just so that it really, if you make it, mount it correctly, and the door doesn't jiggle or move at all, it impresses upon a person who might be trying to get in that it's going to be a lot more work getting into this door because it's solid. So, advice for people putting in locks. Number one, don't be me. Any of the shit you saw in this video, do not reproduce at home. Don't try this at home because you'll lock yourself out of your house. Number one. Number two, just because someone can pick a lock doesn't mean they can make a key, so don't think that. Next, just because you don't think your lock has been compromised doesn't change that it might have been. Next, learn to do this. You need to be able to take your doorknobs and locks apart. Learn how to do it. It's a home improvement kind of thing. Learn to do it. Do it to a door you don't care about. Buy a couple of locks and fuck with them like I do. Next, it's okay if the upper and lower lock have the same keying because someone picking it, they're not going to make a copy of the key. However, I recommend if you can buy two sets of locks for the front and back door, you put the deadbolt that you would have on the front, on the back, you just swap them so that you have to use two keys to get in the front door. That does actually add a level of frustration for you if you break a key or lose a key, but it does reduce the likelihood of getting in if somebody finds your keys. And now the next part. Don't keep a spare set of keys under some hide key or lock. Just get a locksmith to rip the damn locks off and confirm it's your house. Make sure your ID is up to date. Don't be me several times in my life where I couldn't prove it was my apartment or house. And it's all layers. Put a strong door on. Make sure the door frame is reinforced. Make sure that the hole where the deadbolt goes in has a steel tube in there somewhere that goes in through several studs. Make sure your house is reinforced mechanically. It's not the locks. It's the door and the frame 80% of the time that keeps people out. And next thing is, don't forget your windows are just breakable access ways. So don't sweat this unless you're willing to sweat everything. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. And this has been a really lousy video on me messing with a lock.